This is a Stock Trading Reality Podcast, episode 40.
But it always seemed inaccessible to me or something like that. Like there's some kind of barrier there, or it wasn't for me, or you needed a ton of money to do it or something.
This is the Stock Trading Reality Podcast, where you get to see the realistic side of a trader's journey. Get inspired and stay motivated by everyday normal people who are currently on their journey to trading success. And this is your host, who is absolutely terrible at shooting clay pigeons, but loves it, Clay Trader.
Yes, you heard that right. And in fact, I think I may set up a GoFundMe page just where you can send me donations out of pity and out of the kindness of your heart, because it is rough. I'm not going to lie. As far back as I can remember, they just don't win. They make stupid decisions in management. So if any of the Cleveland Browns management is listening to this podcast, quit drafting the people you do. And I'll just leave it at that. But it's pretty painful. At least it kind of counterbalances it, given I'm a graduate from Ohio State. We do a little bit better there in football. But as far as the Cleveland Browns, it's been rough. So like I said, I'll put a link to GoFundMe.com. Feel sorry for Clay, and you can go donate me some money for what I have to put up with as a fan of the Cleveland Browns. Our co-host here, Ches, I know he's a big Blackhawks fan in hockey, and I believe you're a Bears fan in football, I'm assuming?
It's an interesting question you bring up, because I'm proud to admit, but it also pains me at the same time, that the last time I actually sat down to watch the Bears play was when they made it to a Super Bowl Sunday. I think this was in like 2010, so 5 years ago, and we lost horribly, and that's the last time I've watched the Bears play. It makes me sad because I want to see, I got to see my White Sox win the World Series. I've got to watch the Blackhawks win the Stanley Cup a bunch of times. I just wanted the Bears to win one in my lifetime. So, I mean, I guess hopefully I got a lot more years to wait for it, but I'm not holding my breath, that's for sure.
So you're more of a hockey fan than a football fan?
Yeah, definitely a bigger hockey fan.
Okay, cool. Well, we covered little sports here on the Stock Trading Reality Podcast. Well, today we have a pretty cool interview. We are interviewing Aaron. He goes by Zep, Z-E-P, in the chat room. And he is a musician. Like, literally, he travels around and plays gigs. And he had a very cool job for Carnival. I'll just leave it at that. But his first kind of job seemed kind of like living the life. So we'll let him get to that. But it's a good interview in terms of just trader psychology. Ches brings up a couple really good points in regards to it's fascinating how the mind works. And it's something where I'm very confident, if you just kind of are honest with yourself when you listen to it, I think a lot of people will be able to relate to some of the things Aaron has been through. So let's just get started. Hey, Aaron, welcome to the show.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. It's pretty good here.
I'm pretty sure you are the first quote-unquote musician that we've had. So can you give us a quick little synopsis on that? Because that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I do. I've been doing that, about 24 years now. Started when I was a teenager. Eventually went to school for jazz guitar. I have a bachelor's degree in that. And then after that, I was married for a while back there in my 20s. So it was a little different lifestyle back then. And we lived in San Diego for about 2.5 years. I graduated college when I was 25. And then we moved to San Diego for about 2.5 years. Then Minneapolis for about 3 years. And at that point, we both went our different directions there. But it was like the first time in my life I could go and work on a cruise ship. And so I went and did that for about 3.5 years, floating around the Caribbean, playing music out there. And then I came back in 2012. And after all the thinking I had done out there, what am I going to do with my life when I get back on land? I really still had no idea. So I ended up renting a house on a lake in my my hometown, Wapaka, central Wisconsin. It's a small town there. Beautiful in the summertime. So I rented a house on a lake there for about a year and a half. And then I ended up moving back over to Appleton, which is in the Fox Valley. And that's where I am now. But all the time I had out there at sea, and all the time that I put into thinking, what am I going to do when I get on land? Whenever none of that ever worked out the way I thought it was going to. So that's kind of part of how I got into trading.
Okay, well let's ask. So how did you think it was going to work out? And because you said it didn't work out that way. But
I really had no idea. I guess I didn't really have any idea. I had something numbersy in mind. I've always liked the idea of having. For me, I always want to it's about musical freedom for me. And so, I want to get paid. It's nice to get paid and all that, but I don't want to have to play gigs I don't want to play. And I want to be able to choose my gigs, and I want to kind of keep myself fresh for the things I want to do with that. And not saying I don't want to make my living doing that if it works out that way, but in my opinion, the way I've always saw it, if you're not happy doing that, or if you're doing things more for other people, or you're not compromising the right way, then what's the point? You might as well do something else, right? So that's the way I've always thought. And so, after working on cruise ships for that long, I was just really burned out on, and on how much I was just kind of doing it for the money there towards the end there. And it was good money. Don't get me wrong. I was able to save some. It's a really nice job for that, for sure.
Not to mention you get to float around the Caribbean.
Yeah,
that's a pretty interesting stage to play on quite often. Is you're just floating around in some nice weather.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. And oftentimes, the ship would wobble or something, and lose your balance or something. It could happen on stage. People think that you had too much to drink. That wasn't actually it. So, the ship was moving.
Yeah, maybe you hit like a great white whale or something like. No, great white whale, that doesn't exist, does it? Great white sharks exist. Yeah. A blue whale, that's what I'm thinking, right, Ches? Ches is a marine biologist, by the way. So.
Oh, no way.
No way. Funny thing is, my brother actually is, but he doesn't do anything related to that. But yeah, Clay, I think you need to sit down with your daughter and learn your marine animals together. Yeah.
All right. So my question is, you're floating around in the Caribbean. At any time, were you wanting the stock market? Because you'd mentioned you wanted something with numbers, but were you specifically thinking the stock market? Or, what ultimately kind of tipped you to want, pun intended, right? Cruise ships can tip. So, what tipped you into wanting to get involved in the stock market?
I think because I was pondering how I was going to answer that question, because I think the stock markets and it's always intrigued me and interested me. Even since the time when I was a kid, but it always seemed inaccessible to me, or something like that. Like there's some kind of barrier there, or it wasn't for me, or you needed a ton of money to do it or something. And so I never looked too seriously at it. And so when I was on ships, I never really. I wish that time machine question. If I could go back to when I was sitting on those ships. I'd be like, hey man, learn this, because it would have been perfect. I would have all that time in the world out there to learn that while I couldn't trade and couldn't mess up, right? And it would have been a great time. But I would take classes in the CTC on spreadsheets and stuff, and business management classes and that kind of thing. I had really an idea that I was always going to play music, but I really wanted just a more stable, on land. Out there it's easy. On land, gigs come, gigs go. It's not as easy, and things fluctuate. So I wanted to find a way to balance that out, but I wanted to find a way to do it on my own terms, in a way that that it could work together. And the other thing about me is I like having a non-musical job. So it's just kind of, I like having two sides of me. I like having the number side and then the music side, keep it separate. I guess it's kind of a thing about me, is I've always had something else going on besides music. But I was trying to find a way to make this work together. And so when I was out there, I was thinking maybe an insurance agent or something like that. But still, that just didn't really jive with the music. What if I end up doing some with that and going somewhere with that? Then what am I going to do? I was never able to find this balance. And I wanted to work for myself. I knew that, kind of came to that conclusion. But the first thing that happened when I got on land, I just played gigs that summer. I had a really good summer there. Summer rolls around here, so it's not hard to stay busy in the summertime. But when the summertime came to an end in 2012, I actually went to a temp agency, and I just kind of gave them an idea of what I was looking for, and I ended up getting a energy assistance caseworker job. And I actually ended up getting it in my hometown where I was living. It just kind of worked out that way. And the reason I really liked the challenge of that job, for all the numbers and things, but I like the idea of being on the wire and having to meet demands like that and learn a system like that. It was a really big challenge for me. But that came to an end. Actually, the funny thing is exactly a year ago today, because the increased needs that they needed, it just wasn't working out anymore. And so I kind of ended up on this path of, okay, now what? And so for most of last winter, I got a part-time job. My roommate's also my bandmate. I just got a part-time job with his company, just kind of trying to set appointments for things and whatever. And they were really working on my schedule. But is actually what happened was last February, I took a trip out to Oregon to see a friend of mine. And I had a lot of time to think out there. And I was like, I really got to move forward with this. This job I had wasn't really it for the long run. And I have a lot of good things going on musically. I can't abandon that either. So, really, it's in terms of where I'm going in that direction, this is the best place I've ever been. So, I got to find a way to make this work. And when I was coming back through Minneapolis on my way back from Oregon, it was I intended to stay there for a couple of days because I had some friends there I hadn't seen in a while. One of those friends had just got the Robinhood app. and it was invite only at the time. It was still a waiting list, and I just happened to be in the right place at the right time. He's like, "Oh, hey man, try to check this out." He sends me an invite, and I think that's when I discovered the rabbit hole. I think that's when I first found it, and I'm like, okay, this is really intriguing because that suddenly like it occurred to me like maybe the barrier isn't as thick as I thought it was. Maybe this is 100% free. Wow. So I didn't do anything with it for a couple of weeks. I remember I went to Nashville right after that for a kind of half work, half pleasure thing. And a couple of weeks later, I kind of was like, I'd open it up and I'd look at the numbers movement and stuff and think, wow, that's pretty cool. Like, and I'd do the math. Wow, if I had done this and that, and wow, I'd be, this much more money. And I decided after a couple of weeks, I'm like, okay, you either got to do something with this or give it to somebody else because it was invite only. That's the way I was thinking. It's invite only. If you're not going to do something with it, then give it to somebody who will. And so I said, okay, let's give this a try. And I went to the website and read up all on, made sure it was legit and all that. And then I transferred $300 over, and I bought when that took a couple of days, but then I bought three shares of Facebook, which I think was at about $66 at the time or something like that. I think I should have held that, but anyway, I sold it the next day.
Hindsight.com, man. We're all rich.
But I sold it the next day, and I made $3. And I'd never looked at a chart or anything like that, but I just realized that with a fraction of the money I had in my savings account, I made more than all that money I had made in the last 3 months or whatever in a day by doing that. So suddenly I was like, wow, just the possibilities kind of started to occur to me. So I said, okay.
Yeah. So I'm sure that was a very, very happy $3 you had made too. It
was like, wow. I mean, even if it had gone down $3, just realizing the possibility of how things can move like that, I think was like the biggest thing there. So okay, I did this with $300. Let's see what I can do with 10,000. And so I transferred 10,000 over. And
wait, so you went from $300, now you're doing $300 to $10,000.
Yeah, well, actually 10,303 if you count it.
All right, so
yep, that's the total account.
So
right
one trade and boom, let's ramp things up. All right, all right.
Yeah, but I have to give myself some credit here too. I hear a lot of horror stories out there with what people do with pennies and bury themselves in that stuff. Now, by no stretch is my story perfect here. But I did not waste any time trying to find education. While that money was being transferred over, I was already on YouTube just trying to find, some kind of place to get educated or something. And I was willing to pay for it because
okay, maybe you're just gonna. But why? That's you were willing to pay for it. Why were you willing to pay for it? That piqued my curiosity. So why did you want to pay for education?
Well, where I was coming from when that, and this is true, I'd wanted to go back to school even before I went on cruise ships for quite a while. I'd even applied like 4 or 5 times to different places for different programs. And then I never ended up going because I was always looking at the credit analysis and comparing what I was getting for, okay, I'm paying for all these credits. Now, granted, I've been through college before. I have a degree, so I'm thinking a lot more about the money this time around, right? My parents helped me a lot with that the first time around too. They paid for most of my school. So when coming back into this now, and back then also, like I knew I was going to be a musician. I just figured I was always going to be broke, So now that I actually had some money in the bank or whatever, I was thinking about this a lot differently. And I was looking at like what the credits were and what the classes were, at an older age and like what I'm paying for it. I'm like, why am I paying $400 of credit for Psychology 101? And now I'm not saying that's not a glass where you couldn't get something out of it, but I'm like, how much time? What it really came down to is like, how much time am I getting in this for the return?
What's your return on your investment?
Exactly.
You are a real big numbers guy, so it's kind of interesting. Yeah, now that your money is on the line for school per se or tuition or per credit, you're really doing the analysis yourself to figure out if it's worth it or not.
Exactly, and so when I get these credit analysis back, I just wasn't sure enough about it, about a lot of those things. I had an accounting one set up at one time. I dropped out of that like at the very last minute I just couldn't go through with that. It was just too much of something, whatever. I knew I was heading in the right direction, but I couldn't figure it out. And then I kind of lost my train of thought there for a second. But why did I pay for education? Because I guess I was already willing to pay for it. And when I looked at, the way I saw CTU, the whole cost, it looked to me at about the same as what a cost of a state college would be. Right. And so I was comparing it to that, and I was looking at the content. Now I didn't go into CTU right away. What I did was I took robotics trading, and I got into the inner circle right away. And
you emailed me quite a bit too. I remember way back when you were pretty hands on in terms of asking me questions and reaching out to me, which was good. I mean,
I was impressed with the way you came back to me. Honestly, right away in that first week, I found I actually went through my old notes. I took a lot of good notes back then, and I remember like, oh, check this guy out. He seems real. He seems legit. And the way that you had put emphasis on education, because that's a bit. I also put a lot of emphasis on education and knowing what you're doing before you jump into anything. And so like I could definitely see I got where you're coming from, and you just seem legit to me, and so I decided to give robotics training a try, and I really really loved the class. It took me about a week to take it, but I didn't.
Only a week? You got through 15 hours of content in a week?
You're doing pretty good when you say it only, it took me a week and you feel like that took a long time. I myself am like you, plow through classes and kind of courses really quickly, but generally people take a lot longer than that. So yeah, you kind of flew through that.
I did. As a matter of fact, if I wasn't working, I was literally working on that class around the clock. I would take videos, take little snippets, write down quotes, draw out some of the candlestick patterns, write everything down, and then I go on the charts and on TradingView and start looking for, where I could find these things. And I just really, really, I just wanted to absorb every little nugget I could get out of that, because I paid for it and I wanted to get, and it was a good deal. I thought it was a great deal. But education is always what you put into it is what you're going to get back. And I think that's like lost on a lot of people. Like, I don't even think most of the people around me realize that I've seen myself as a student these last 6 or 7 months or 8 months, whatever it's been. But because it's, I'm doing it all on my own. I'm not going to a school, I'm not going to classes, but I am on my own. During that time, I was just around the clock. I would be up until like 8 in the morning. I'd lay down, take like a 20-minute nap, and get up for the market to open. I wasn't trading because but I would just to see what was going on and just to be a part of it and just kind of see if I could see these things. I was just so intrigued. The minute I realized that I could be a stock trader, like it was possible for me to do that, that was almost like way back when I was in high school and I realized I could be a guitar player. It was like on that level of like, wow, this is something that I never thought I could do, but now I realize if I put the time and effort in, I can really learn how to do this.
All right, I want to try to clear up the timeline here a little bit. So you make that Facebook trade.
Yep.
You make $3 on it.
Yep.
You decide, hey, I'm going to transfer $10,000 in.
Yep.
And then you hop on. I mean, was there any trading going on?
Okay, yeah, a little bit here. Okay, I'm gonna try and yeah, things happened really fast back then. I made that Facebook trade the last week of March, sometime during that time, and then while I was waiting for that 10K to come over, I was for about a few days there. I was just on YouTube for about a week, I guess. I was on YouTube just kind of looking for any kind of, I didn't know. I said I was willing to pay for it, but I didn't know if I'd have to yet. I didn't know if somebody out there had some free stuff or whatever. And I truly believe that if you're willing to look hard enough and sift through all the crap, there's little nuggets of things here and there everywhere. So I was just kind of like putting the filter up and just kind of looking for anything I could find anywhere with anybody. And during that time, I actually found a Forex guy, and I don't remember his name. He's an Indian guy. He talked about how he never lost a trade or whatever, and I don't know if it's that or not, but
Illuminati was after him.
Yeah.
He's hiding out in Brussels.
Oh, the code guy? Are we talking about the code guy?
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, okay.
Could have been that guy. You never know.
He had like an hour video. I watched about the first 8 minutes of it because it was going in a direction I knew it was far for. I wasn't even into Forex yet then. I wasn't planning on being, but I did like the way he talked about averaging into a position. And that comes up a little bit later here. But when that 10K first got over, while I was still doing that, I think like I went through it. I was always trading, but I was doing it fast. I bought like, I don't know, 100 shares of CCL because it was Carnival. That's what I work for. I'm like, oh, Carnival's good stock. Sure. Boom. And then, and I remember that's when things first started getting fun. Like, wow, holy cow, I made $40, and because I'd be in and out real quick, just trying. And then, oh, wait, I got to wait 3 days to get my money back. Oh, okay. I didn't know about any of this stuff. But it was April 1st was when I first started taking robotics. And that's also when I started taking, I started trying out Equity Feed, and I got that off the Clay Trader site as, one of the resources that, might be nice for us. And I took their 1 month, 1 month trial there. And it was during that time, like that first week of April was epic. It was that first day of April, VLTC popped up on my thing. And that was right when, the end of the quarter there, right when Icon had announced that, he had upped his shareholdings and all that. And I just it's kind of came on my radar. I wasn't like looking to go in on a trade with VLTC it or anything like that, but it was like out there. I was just kind of looking for what I was really trying to do is find some kind of lower end stock like that. I don't know what you call a penny. I was never into like those double zeros or triple zeros or anything, but like, I guess at the time that was, it's under $5, whatever. But I was thinking, man, if I bought that now and man, maybe it'll go up, and maybe how much money. I was looking for like a big boost like that, a big thing. And so after I got done with robotics, I was still, God, what was that? Yeah, that was about it, right? I took robotics in that week, and then I was just kind of keeping my eyes open for a stock I could kind of go all in on like that. And it was, wait, I actually wrote this down. I had to go back over this trade. So, it was April 14th, right? It's a Tuesday, I think. I took that strategy that Forex Guy had done, averaging in. Now, keep in mind, I'm using Robinhood from Bats Exchange on TradingView. I'm not totally aware that things are a little bit behind here.
To give our listeners some background here, the TradingView has some free packages for intraday charting. The thing is you're only using one exchange and there's hundreds of exchanges. So your data can sometimes come out, really spotty and choppy, and it's not the most friendly until you kind of pay for those additional data feeds. But yeah, continue.
Yeah, so I wasn't quite aware of all that stuff. Yeah, I knew it was a little bit behind. I wasn't, totally naive, but I wasn't really thinking about it either. But
you were thinking about the big gain, man. You're thinking
about I was thinking if I got in at there, it wasn't really going to matter that much then because it was just going to go up really high, right? So,
it doesn't matter. Data, don't worry about it. The stock will go up. Yeah, I know how that rationale goes. I was there once too.
So I averaged into a position. It was at the average position was 672, and that was about 1,000 shares, and that was on April 14th. At the end, now that was that morning. Now here's the cool thing. This is where it was okay. Things have always been okay for me when things go my way. When things don't go my way, that's where I've gotten into trouble before. But fortunately, this one did, or at least I thought it was going to. It went up. Like right away that morning, when I was up $300 profit, I sold half my position right away. So I was pretty good about just wanting to get out right away and just
that's good risk management there. You sold half your position. I see no wrongdoing yet.
So $150, I'm like, wow, I just made $150. That was like amazing to me. Like I just like this on my phone, made some swipes and I made $150 secured profit. By the end of the day, it closed at the high of day that day. And at the end of the day, total between that realized profit and unrealized profit, I was sitting at plus 800. And that was the most money I had ever made in one day. I remember anyway, doing anything. That was just amazing to me. I mean, now I knew it wasn't realized. So my plan was the next day was that if it dipped below 700 total overall, then I would get out totally and I'd just take that as my profit. Well, what happened the next morning, and I went back over this chart and I'm like, oh man. I mean, like not saying I did this necessarily wrong, but it came right, but I think it bounced right off to 50 or something. But it did. Like the next morning, everyone started selling. I'm like, okay, get out. And I got out with my total profit was $700. So I'm like, okay, I'm up 700. Woo! Awesome. I went to the store. I was running errands, and I'm rich. You're not rich, but I mean, that's a good payday, right? And then I'm like, here, let's just see how far VLTC tanked. And I look, and I'm like, oh my God. If I would have just slept in, I would be up $2,000 or $3,000. And I just went from like that highest, that's so just the highest, happiest I've ever been to just kicking myself and just being like, oh my God, like, what did you do?
This is so interesting because this is exactly how it works. Usually sometimes, people are tolerant. They take a loss. It bums them out. You right now just made what you just said, the biggest payday you've ever gotten for anything in your life. And now you're upset because of lost profit. So you made money, more money than you've ever made kind of doing some random task or anything or playing music or whatever for one day for, a couple swipes on your phone. Now you're upset about that money you got because of lost profit. It's amazing how it works in kind of trading.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's psychology. I mean, literally to go from an ultimate high to now all of a sudden it sounds like just being disgusted with yourself. I mean,
exactly the opposite. Whoever high I was now at least equally low. And just
but you still had made 700. It's amazing how greed works. Greed in hindsight. It's a powerful psychological dynamic. And yeah, this story just illustrates that perfectly. So and I'm sitting here listening. Okay, he took half off. That's good. He told, all right, I'm going to get out at $700. That's what happened. He honored his plan, and then, I mean, just hindsight. I mean, I don't see anything that you did wrong. You set a plan, you followed the plan, but now, of course, which I know you now understand, hindsight.com, it's just wreaking havoc on your life.
Right, but it doesn't end here, though.
Hindsight's got some more to say?
Oh, yeah. No, actually, this actually turns out, this is just the start. What happened was that day, I realized I didn't get my money back for 3 days, right? And so I'm just kind of sitting on my hands, just like, God, why did I? Anyway, I think it was the next day. That was tax day, by the way, Wednesday when it shot up like that. So it was that was April 15th, April 16th. The next day, I'm getting the chart out again. I'm looking at it. I'm starting to think, wait a minute. I think this thing's going to be like, more of a longer term pullback pattern. I think I'm going to get my money back. I suddenly I went from like that low again to like, wait, back in it. Man, this isn't over yet. And so I put together I figured as soon as I got that money back, I'd take one more shot at this because I didn't think it was done going up. And so actually that Friday, that was April 17th, I did get a little bit more money back. I'd sold some UNH stock I'd been holding for a while and finally got back. I made like $5 on that. I was kind of, waiting for it to go back up kind of thing. That wasn't a very big position, but it was still about, about $2,000. But I took that and I went in on that Friday. I didn't even look. I just went in on VLTC that Friday. At the end of the day, I was down 400 on that. So going into the weekend, I was down 400. Still plus 300 overall, but down 400 on that trade.
And you were holding over the weekend?
Right.
So the whole weekend was basically you chewing on your nails waiting for Monday morning.
Not really. I was actually sitting there all weekend staring at that chart, and I could not wait for Monday morning.
Okay, so you're feeling confident.
Oh, I'm feeling very, very confident. Okay. Confident enough that I actually I published a chart on TradingView. I was going to send this to you before this, and I forgot to. I'll send it to you afterwards. But and it talked. I mean, you could totally tell I took robotics. I mean, I described it well, what was going on, everything. And then I'm like, look, this thing looks like it's about to explode, and blah 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 blah. That Monday morning, I just went in. I got all my money back. I went all in on that. And by the end of that day, I think I was up a couple of thousand by the end of the day Monday.
Okay, so the what you had learned in robotic trading is leading you to a nice profitable trade so far.
Absolutely, I got to give myself some credit. I knew what I was looking at on the chart. Okay. I did not know much about proper risk management yet then.
I was going to say, knowing what you see on the chart, knowing how to read a chart is totally different than knowing how to actually manage a trade once you're in it. So now you got me sitting on the edge of your seat. How did you actually manage this thing?
Well, this is what I didn't want to do. I sat there overnight Monday, and I didn't want to make the same mistake I did last time by selling right away in the morning, right? So I made it a point to sleep in, I got up. I got up at 9 o'clock, and I look at my phone, and I'm up like $5,000, $4,000 or $5,000, and I'm just like, this is absolutely. There's a voice in my head saying, "Dude, swipe clean, get out, just get out," But I'm like, no, man, you made that mistake last time, remember? Remember when when you swiped it and then it went back up,
Where was the voice that tells you to sell half? Where did this voice go?
Yeah,
that voice isn't in the picture yet.
Yeah, that must have been a quieted voice there.
Oh man, at least sell half like you did the first time. That was good on your part.
I remember this now. That morning I was up like 2,000 or 3,000, and I was like, wow, this is amazing. And then I went to a work meeting at 2 o'clock that day. I would remember that thing just kept going. I was at a work meeting and they were motivating us with like $40 bonuses and things like that. And it's not saying that's bad or anything, but I'm looking down at my phone and it's bouncing me between $19,000 and $20,000. I'm going like, wow. I'm showing my roommate like, look at this. And then that's when it's gonna do swipe. That would have been, if I could go back, yeah, swipe. It didn't come out of it too bad, but still that would have been a better point. I stayed in again overnight that Tuesday. I think at the end of the day that day I was up plus $5,000 and $5,008, I think is what it was. And then I have a picture of it. I took a screenshot of Robinhood. But then the next morning, same plan, slept in until 9. And I got up and it was, my phone read $23,000. And so I'm looking down at 130% on a $10,000 investment in about 48 hours. I'm like, wow, that's just amazing. And so I said, okay, now I knew. I'm like, I probably really should just get out right now. But I still wanted to check the chart first. And, now here's the thing. It's bats and it's Robinhood. I went over to the other room and I got it on the TV. And as soon as it crossed my trend line, I was like, no. And I held on a little bit longer. But of course, in reality, it's actually a lot lower than it is. By the time I got out, I eventually did. I lost like $3,000 or $4,000 in a couple of minutes. But when I did finally swipe, I still came out 7,800 up, about 7,800 up.
But you were up $20,000 at one point.
At 20, yeah. On 10,000, I was up 13 profit at one point, 13,000 profit. Yeah.
Okay.
Point. Yeah. So yeah, obviously, I could have done better than I did, but given like how really looking, there was a part of me that was kind of telling me back then too over that weekend, like, dude, you got to do this now before you know better. Really, like there's something like that. Like, man, you got to do this before, you actually learn how to do this right. Because, the mentality I had behind this trade did come back and bite me a couple of times later.
The interesting thing to me about all of this was the fact that, when Clay asked you, were you biting your nails the whole weekend? I know it was probably about a minute or two ago. We kind of mentioned this, is the fact that you were so confident. Everybody we always talk to, including myself, it seems like everybody just assumes the worst immediately. and you're out here publishing ideas on TradingView, and you're excited for Monday morning. I never see that. It's just so rare for me to see. It's just it's a complete contrast to what I'm used to seeing. But I mean, you still salvage the trade, and that's a fantastic gain. But yeah, obviously, I'm sure you're probably a big believer in scaling out into profits now, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no, and trade plan. That is just and really knowing how much you're going to lose. That is so important because that's what I mean, I did a lot of things right in the beginning, but I never planned for what happens when it goes against you. Except that I didn't want to go back further than I had in my account. That was kind of where I was at. Like my stop loss, I guess, would have been, it was still a mental loss, but I didn't want to go back further than where I started. But who knows if I would actually? I don't really know for sure if I would have or not.
Right.
Come up.
So you walk away with $7,800 profit.
Yeah.
What's your next step from here? Where do you go? Are you thinking I got this whole game figured out, or did you acknowledge at that point there's something wrong there? I mean, where are you at mentally, and where did you go from this point?
I definitely knew that I had a long ways to go. I from that point, my goal at that point was I wanted to take that money that I had made from that, and I wanted that to be the start of like my real trading career. And I really wanted to learn how to do it right. I took options after that, options simplified, and then and that was a great class. But I wasn't with Robinhood. I didn't have any. You can't use that for options. So I kind of put that in the back burner. Things got busier for me as summer got nearer with music. But what happened was this is so dumb. There was some oil stock. I think it was GDP, and I'm like, man, if I go in now, it'll be like, a lot of money later, right? Knowing not even knowing anything about the energy sector at all or anything about oil as its own beast or anything. I did not even checking the price of oil, nothing. And so I went in like 3,000 shares, and then I got out right away with an $800 loss. Because I could see it wasn't, but still it was $800. I'm like, man, I think I had a hard time realizing back then that money that I had made was real to a certain extent.
It almost felt like a video game or something to
you.
You.
Yeah. And so, I was having a hard time, and I was telling, I could feel myself losing control a little bit. Like I was really feeling like, okay, maybe, but I wanted, I still didn't want to, but I didn't want to take away opportunities that would come along by taking all that money out of my account either. But yeah, so I took the GDP thing as a lesson, I guess, but I don't know how much I really learned from it, to be honest.
I think you learned a lot, but I don't think because you made the comment, which is fascinating to me. I felt myself losing control, and I can, from an outsider looking in, I'll tell you exactly how you lost control. You started to just gamble. You admitted, I didn't know much about oil. I didn't really check the price of this. I just thought this and that, and so basically you put 3,000 shares on red.
Yeah.
And then, but good on you for at least realizing, what the heck, and cut it at $800. But that's what happened, losing control. And that's what we always need to be aware of, myself included, is there's a fine line between trading and gambling. And when you're running, when you're feeling good about things, when you're coming off wins, and like when you said, you didn't quite feel like the money was real, that's when gambling can, pop up real quick into the picture. So when most traders, and I love how you said that, quote unquote, lose control, more than likely than not, you just start to gamble with the money, and you summarize the gamble perfectly. I didn't check this, I didn't check that. I just figured, it'll eventually go back up. That's a straight up gamble. There was absolutely no trade plan there. So I think you did subconsciously learn a lesson, because you admitted that you just felt like you were losing control.
Yeah, and that's true. But at the same time, though, that wasn't the last bad trade I made. You know what I mean? Like I felt like I had to like I've heard Ches say before, like you don't always have to be in a trade. I think that was the lesson that
it's one of the hardest lessons to learn too.
Yeah. So there was one other big loss I had after this, and this is the last real big loss I took. It was and I really thought I had this one. It was VGGL.
Yep.
If you go back to May 21st, it had just gapped up, and it was just starting to come down to a resistance line. Now I wasn't looking at the chart at the time when I went in the trade. Looking back at that chart now, there's a beautiful wolf candle right underneath, like the 8 and the 13. It's a perfect like put setup almost, and I'm going long at that situation, right? So, I was on my phone in the car though, and I'm like, man, this is exactly where I thought it was going to get down there. So I go into 1,000 shares, and then we were out of town for work, and I remember I was sitting down taking a break in a park or something, and I'm like, I'll check stock twits to see what people are talking about this stock VGGL, and I looked in it, I'd gone in at like 310 or something, and it was at 250. And this was like a half hour later or something. I'm like, what? The market had just closed. This can't be right. And then I looked at the news, and the CEO had just announced some kind of a public offering or something like that. And it was just just like that. Like within 20 minutes, I lost $650 or whatever it was. The next morning, that sucked. man, you talk about the torture chamber, sitting in overnight, not wondering how far that's going to go. Like how far is that going to tank? How far is that going to sink? I had no way of doing anything until the markets open.
Yeah, it's
That
totally
was
out of
one
your
time I
control.
was up in the morning. I'll tell you, I was up that morning right away, and I was hoping for a little dead cat bounce. I didn't know that's what you called it then, but I was hoping it would like just pop up a little bit, and then I'd get out, but it didn't. It just kept going. So I got out. That was like another $650, $700 loss or something. And that's when I think one of the questions that you were asking me is like, when did you realize like you really have a long ways to go yet, or you have a lot to learn? That was definitely a moment when I said, okay, you can't do this anymore. I took all the money that I had originally started with and transferred it back over to my savings. I said, okay, cowboy, talking to me. I did a lot of talking to myself. I probably sound crazy, but these things that go back and forth, these sides of me that just don't get along sometimes.
There's two people out there. I'll interrupt you. There's two people out there as traders. There's traders that talk to themselves, and there's liars. So I'll just leave it at that.
You nailed it.
Yeah. So I basically told the one side of myself, I'm like, okay, cowboy, if you want to shoot from the hip like that, you're only going to do it with the money that you already made in the stock market. You're not going to do that with your savings. But anyway, I didn't make any more real big trades like that. I lost a little bit on an Apple swing trade in August, but it wasn't a big position. It was just I was just more or less trying to swing trade something while I was taking more classes. It was in July that I finally went in with CTU, and that was because money flow is good for me in the summer, and so I was like, well, you might as well do it now while things are up good while you can, and so I did that, and since then I've been I was just took RVR right away. Oh, actually, robotic trading, skill trading, that was just great for me because it had been so long since I took robotics. And so I thought, oh, this will be great. I know a lot of people don't take it, but I was like,
I was going to say, so you found that helpful? Because I swear, I almost want to say that's like one of the most important classes, probably that and RVR trading, because
agree.
I mean, so you would agree with that you really got a lot of benefit out of it?
Absolutely. And especially because it had been so long since I took robotics, I really put myself into that class, but I hadn't, gone back over anything in a long, long time. And so for me to take that, it was like, oh, man, I remember like getting done with moving averages, and right away I'm like, I could scan charts faster. And just looking back at those trades I made and some other little, smaller ones, it was just like, wow, just some of the stuff that I wasn't even, the obvious easy stuff I just wasn't even looking at. And then as I went through those classes, just understanding like how I want my charts set up, and from there it's just been about just, I guess, getting experience. I opened my IB account early July there too. And so and since then,
for listeners, IB is Interactive Brokers. Just want to clarify that.
Yeah, and so from then until now, I've really been focusing on getting the options day trading thing done. I really, right now, where we're speaking right now, I feel like I'm really, really close to like to being able to start making some profitable or being able to draw profit from that is what I'm trying to say. I've been paper trading it. I have about 400 or 500 in my IB account right now. But the way I'm doing it right now is that I probably jumping ahead a little bit, but I'm mostly paper trading still. But if a really nice thing does come along, then I'll as long as I have a good plan in place, I'll go ahead and start with the real money.
Okay, no, I want to get you. You said if a really nice thing comes along, explain what's a really nice thing.
Okay, like a lot of like what I'm doing.
What are you looking for? Because this is like what kind of strategies are we using. So what is a really nice thing? Define that for us.
For an example, last week. This is something that I didn't play, but I wish I would have with real money. And the only reason I didn't play with real money was because I didn't have my real money account open. It was just my paper trade account, and I didn't think I had time to log in. So I paper traded it, but it was Netflix was falling from 124, and I could see that it was just it was big red bloody, and it was down. And I missed that entrance too because I thought that was going to be a put thing, but I was looking at
what time frame charts are you looking at?
15 on this one. 15 on this one. And so it was about 20 minutes in, I could see, I put an alert out in this. I said, Netflix, the bulls fought really hard to keep this over 120 the other day. That might be a good spot to pick up some calls. And so it came down and it touched, I think, 120.03, and it bounced back up. So that was one
120.03, huh? What, that seems just so random for those of you that attend the webinars. 120.03, huh?
Yeah,
anyways,
right on top of that Graham number, right?
Yeah.
So that one felt really good to me. I guess when I feel like okay, this is because when I'm paper trading to a certain extent, I'm still trying to figure out what setups I like and just get more experience with what works for me and what doesn't, and what would happen if I did do this. But once in a while something comes along, I'm like, oh no, I like this, and so I'll do it. But I'm not risking a whole lot either. Usually 1 or 2 contracts, stop losses, and RBR is all good. So, but
But yeah, that's. I feel like we hammer on this almost every podcast too. Is that there might be 50 setups that I could survey 1,000 people and find 50 setups on a chart. The thing is you need to find the ones that for you specifically that work. That one or two, go-to setups that really work well for you. But
Absolutely.
but yeah, I think it's real interesting that you've already progressed so far in the sense that you saw Netflix falling from 124, and instead of being like a sheep and chasing, getting those really awful entries at pretty much the worst spot you can, you were looking for, and you had a ton of logic behind why you wanted to kind of buy at a certain level. And there's a ton of things besides chart patterns that we kind of cover, like we were talking about Graham numbers in the webinars and stuff. So I think it really shows you just kind of progressing as a trader. And I mean, you haven't really been doing this that long, which is amazing to me. But honestly, you're applying a ton of principles that we go over almost, like very, very well right off the bat. So I want to give you some props for that.
Yeah, and I'm curious. So July is when you got CTU.
Yep.
How many actual money trades have you made since
Since
then?
then, I don't think very many. I did an Apple trade, and I should have sold when it hit 135. It was when it was gapping up, but I was thinking more of a buy-in. It was not the right mentality. I wasn't really trading that right, but I lost like 150 on that or something. It was, yeah, whatever. Besides that, I don't think that I did an ESI trade. I made $100 on that one. That was a
Okay.
good trade plan. That one worked out okay. Aside from that, I did a couple of options trades, but it's like since basically when summer ended after Labor Day, that's when things started to slow down for me with music, and I've had more time to put into this. And so since then, I remember right away. I'll be honest with you, I didn't think it was going to take me this long to get comfortable trading options. I thought that with all the time and effort, I wasn't trading much over the summer, but I was always looking at charts, and I was just thinking, man, this isn't whatever. I'll get this. Well, the first couple of times I went in with real money, options will bite you like fast. That's the thing. That's the thing about them. That's the cool thing about them is that you can make those high percentages, but the flip side of that is that it can go back against you real fast. And so that took me by surprise a little bit, and just like how much more difficult it was than I thought it was to stay green with options has been like, and playing the spreads right. So from then until now, it's been kind of getting, like I said, figuring out those trade setups. I don't think I've made, except for like, I think a week before last, I started making a couple of real money trades on Facebook. And then I was chasing one on Netflix. See, that's what you said before, Ches. Yeah, that's been my problem. Chasing. What I mean? I feel like I'm like, oh, I'm not in this. Why? It's not going to stop. Go. But then where are you going to put your stop once you're in? That's the thing. If it does come back against you, and so, just this last webinar we had, I'm not kidding. The time of this podcast is really interesting for me because so many things are coming together for me. This last webinar, a couple of things that you said, nothing that I hadn't heard before, but just getting through, like, to me, the right way at that time, using your stop to define your entry. I never really put it that way. Never thought about it that way. If you missed a trade, you missed a trade. But if you use that, then your RBR will follow. I never really thought about it that way.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at the right things, your trade plan comes together on its own to an extent, assuming that what you're looking at and that you understand the rules of putting together a trade plan. But yeah, it's fascinating how when you're focused on risk and risk management, that kind of holds your hand and tells you, no, dummy, that doesn't make sense, or yeah, that makes sense, or hey, what are you thinking? So, but yeah, and it's always kind of hard to, that's why I like doing the webinars, because I mean, sometimes it's just, oh, wait, I can explain it like that. And it just,
and it really, it's really
so,
helps. The podcast and the webinars both have just really helped keep me going. And they, like that webinar, like last week, for example, this came at a really good time because I was really starting to like stress like beforehand. I'm like, man, are you ever going to get this? And now I'm talking to myself too. Like, it's only been a couple of months since you've really been trying this. It takes some of these guys 6-7 months. They're paper trading, hats off. Good. Awesome. So I know that I'm really pushing myself a little bit too hard maybe, but it's,
yeah, if you're not happy with yourself after 2 months of paper trading and thinking that you should be a, professional options trader within 2 months, I would, Ches, would you agree he's been a little too hard on himself?
For sure. There's people who have struggled for a decade trying to figure this stuff out. And trust me, I thought in the year 2015 I'd be, picking out what mountaintop I want to build my mansion on. It doesn't work that way. You're doing great, and you've already progressed exponentially. So you are definitely being too hard on yourself, but you're trending in the right direction, which is what we like to see.
I appreciate you guys saying that. And honestly, it's a CTU and you guys, man. I mean, I don't know where I'd be without you guys, honestly. Like if I hadn't found you guys when I did, and not just you guys, but the guys in the chat room too.
Yep.
Roach and Hooch and those guys.
We have a good time in there, don't we?
Yeah, we do. No,
Yeah.
it's a really really great thing, and just I mean, an absolute bargain for the price if you ask me. I mean, I'm not trying to. I know you don't want to turn this into a sales pitch or anything, but man, I mean, I'm so glad I waited on going back to school, really, because this is like for a lot less money I would have probably spent on that. And I absolutely love doing this. It's a lot of fun. It's a great challenge, and you got to like numbers and things like that, I guess. But the reason I like it is a challenge. The psychology behind this thing has just been like that's been my thing lately. It's just like, like for I took RVR in July or August, and so I've known these principles, but applying them, when you're in the situation is a whole different thing.
Yep.
That psychology is just wow.
Yeah, like I said, there's reading the chart and then there's actually applying them, or in other words, managing the trade. There's two different things. That's why I just always shrug when people say, "Oh yeah, I learned how to read a chart on YouTube." I'm like, okay, there's a little bit more to trading than just reading a chart. You got to know how to, do all that stuff that we cover in the courses there, and that there's just more to it than being able to
I could read a book on astrophysics. Doesn't mean I'm going to know anything about how to use astrophysics after I read that book. But yeah, there's a lot more to it and a lot more complexity than people think sometimes.
Yep. I'm curious here for you. What are some things that you think you're doing very well right now? So some strengths, and then what are some things that going forward, you want to improve on, if you want to call them weaknesses or not. But so what are you doing really well? What are you confident in? And then what are the areas that you want to continue to improve on?
Okay, well, I think one of my strengths is definitely like my commitment and dedication to doing this right. My strive for perfection. If anything, a weakness that goes along with that though is that I definitely I push too hard sometimes and I get in my own way. Like what we were just talking about before. Like in this last podcast too, I can't remember who that was, but said like your desire to succeed gets in your own way sometimes. I definitely have seen that come up. But strengths and weaknesses, I think like my commitment in dedication to doing this right is definitely a strength. Weaknesses, impulsive. I'm impulsive by nature. And so like keeping my hands on my feet, as impulsive as I am, I gotta give myself a little credit for like being as in control as I have been throughout this whole thing since March, because I made a couple of big mistakes there, but really, I mean, compared to like where I could be, I think like because I'm a little bit older now too, that it helps that I'm not doing this when I'm right out of high school, right out of college, and that I've been through some things and I'm a little bit older now and aware of some of my weaknesses in general, but definitely the impulse thing and not chasing.
I definitely want to give you some credit there before Ches hops in with the next question. But, I mean, you took some big losses for sure. You did some kind of nonsensical things. However, it's not like you ever blew up your account or anything. It was big losses, yeah, but you always, just had the kind of the voice in your head that just made you get out, while preserving, the gains that you had made from a kind of an overall perspective. So you definitely did very well with that, because we've had plenty of times where, and guests where it just wasn't quite like that, and they watched all their gains disappear. So good on you for that. I know Ches has another question, and then we're going to visit the time machine.
Yep.
Yeah, honestly, like I've repeated a bunch of times, honestly, your drive is fantastic. And you know what? I wouldn't even know that you were very kind of impulsive either, based on kind of the self-control you show with your trading, which, like I said, that's one of the hardest things to do, is to kind of not be in a trade. That was one of the hardest things for me to master, especially in the beginning of my trading. So, like I said, I know your journey isn't brand new, but you're relatively, you're in your infancy for your trading career. So you're doing all the right things, which is great. But
just talk about that third order entry. I did a video on it a few weeks ago. The third order entry type, you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, the third order entry type. Yep. Yeah, we'll link that in the show notes about kind of a good way to preserve your capital, because it's not always the most difficult to make money. It's more difficult to kind of hold on to it. But what particular routines do you have besides sleeping in when you're holding? You have any other kind of normal routines you do in the morning or for the trading day?
Yeah, I mean, I like to get up. Well, honestly, my alarm goes off around 6:30. I hit snooze a few times. I try to be up. I mean, this is Central Time, by the way. I try to be out of bed by little after 7, and then I want to be in front of my computer. if I, like I struggle with getting up sometimes, especially after gig nights. So, but I want to be in front of my computer by about a half an hour before the market opens. And a lot of the time, I've already done my research the night before. I'm not right now. I make my trade plans the night before, and I'm only trading the same 4 stocks basically. It's Netflix, Facebook, SPY, and Apple, the usual suspects. And
you mean the options of those stocks, right?
Options, right? Yep, absolutely.
Okay.
And because for the most part they're tight spreads there, and I just like the idea of just getting to know those stocks too, and getting to know using the same ones.
Lighting some candles with them, taking them out for dinner.
Yeah, you got it. Right.
Yep.
Other than that, I have my trade plans together the night before. If it was, if I think in bullish or bearish, and I guess that's what I have for routine. I mean, all the time. At the nighttime. I do my research and preparation for the next day, and the next day I'm just kind of making sure I'm checking for gap ups and things like that in the morning.
Gotcha.
And I don't like to. I'm still. I don't play with the morning volatility right away. I like to sit back a little bit. I know that there's a lot of money to be made there if you know what you're doing, but I'm not quite there yet. So
I'm curious, how long do you wait usually?
I usually wait about a half hour.
Okay, so you're basically sitting on your hands for the first 30 minutes. So
yeah, yep.
We just interviewed. I don't remember who exactly it was, but yeah, they don't even trade Mondays, so they literally sit on their hands like entire Monday. Do you remember who that was, Ches?
I actually don't remember, to be honest.
Yeah, it was on a past podcast, but yeah. So, all right. Well, you kind of already jumped ahead. I can tell you're a loyal listener of the podcast because you knew you knew this time machine question was coming. But you brought this on yourself, so you better get ready to think quick on your feet because I'm not going to accept that first answer you gave. So, if Ches lends you his time machine and you can go back into time at the beginning, what other bit of advice would you give yourself, not counting the one that you told us about earlier in the interview?
Right. If I went back and I could meet myself again in March, where I was at that time, I think, and I know this has been said before. I think it was Big T that said it, but slow down. I can't think of a better thing to say to myself than that back then. Okay, sell VLTC when it crosses your trend line, but slow down. You know what I mean? I don't know what this.
No, I think that's powerful words for this business.
That's all we need
to
know. Yeah, slow down. Honestly, a lot of people would do themselves a lot of good if they would just slow down a little bit.
There's a couple of things. I compare the stock market to the ocean a lot. Like it's this huge, powerful thing that can wipe you out in a second if you don't respect it. And I also think that learning to trade is a lot like learning to surf because it's a timing thing and it's a lot of work and the ocean is always moving. It's never the same. It's one of the hardest things I think you can learn how to do. But once you got it, I think you got it. No, I'm kind of rambling right now. Sorry, not sure where I'm going.
You're all right.
No, not at all.
But Ches, we're gonna move into some fun questions that Ches has for you. So I mean, now this is when you should be kind of nervous.
Yeah, this is where you can actually, be nervous. Instead of being nervous about a $10,000 overnight position, you need to be nervous about if you can remain in the community after you answer this question.
Sure.
What is your favorite movie?
I think one of my favorite movies of all time is Trains, Planes, and Automobiles. It's an old 80s movie with John Candy, Steve Martin.
I gotta add that one to the to-do list too. I've heard of it before, but
oh man, you never seen that?
No, I mean I hear it's kind of an American classic though, so okay. I mean I'm kind of slacking on it. But yeah, me and my wife, we have quite the movie list that we got to get through. So
to be completely honest with you, I've never seen Dumb and Dumber. So
well, you must be a communist then. So you might as well move to China, North Korea, Cuba.
Right. Yeah,
I think that's. Did I summarize all the communist countries? I think so. So I mean, I hear they have nice. You can play some gigs in North Korea, then I guess. I mean, that's blasphemy on this podcast. Absolute blasphemy.
Well, there goes the North Korean demographic we had going for us.
To Kim Jong Un or whatever his name is. My apologies. So, anyways, I should probably bite my tongue once in a while, but oh well. So what kind of food do you like? You're up in Wisconsin, or I should say over in Wisconsin. We're basically neighbors. We just have a big body of water separating us. So what do you like to eat over there?
Oh, I like the usual brats and cheese curds and all that stuff that we like here in Wisconsin. I try to eat healthier than that these days. It's not easy in this state. There's a lot of good food around here. But yeah, I think brats, cheese curds, hamburgers. I know, pizza.
The classics. Now, being a musician, what this might be a little bit difficult, or maybe you'll have an answer.
Actually, no. Let's turn this into. Why don't you plug yourself? Give yourself a plug, the name of your group or whatever. So
sure.
We'll use it for that.
Yeah, I mean, I freelance as well, so I mean, there's a lot of different bands I'm associated with and play with. But my band right now is called Kyle Megna in the Monsoons. Kyle Megna is my roommate and also my bandmate. But it's a all original, funky, real funky rock band here from the cities, and got a lot of right people in the right places behind us right now, and so we're excited about the direction we're going in. Got a little tour coming up here in January from Nashville down into Jacksonville and Savannah into the south there.
Now, do you have like a website or a Twitter handle or anything? I mean, you're more than willing to come on here and do this, so go ahead and plug away. I mean, tell people where they can find more information about your band.
Okay, Kyle Megna, it's just kylemegna.com, K-Y-L.
And we'll put this in the show notes too.
MEJNA.com. That's for that band. I also play in a band in the summertime called Old American Junk. OldAmericanJunk.com. That's a really fun band too. That's a really, yeah, that's a fun band. I play with a lot of good people. I'm lucky to have a lot of good things going on. And just I guess I have a Twitter now, but yeah, I don't really pay attention too much to that. So I mean, that's in the forum too on the CTU. What my Twitter thing is, and Facebook is just Aaron Zeppelin. So find me there too.
Cool. Well, hopefully, hopefully you get some new fans out of this. That'd be pretty cool.
Absolutely.
So we know you like to trade stocks. We know you like to play music. What other things do you like to do for hobbies?
Well, in the summertime, I definitely like to get out in the Wapaka area on a kayak. Wapaka, that's where I'm from, in central Wisconsin, is honestly one of the most beautiful places I've ever been. You know, that's a lot of places around the Caribbean and Bermuda, Aruba, wherever, Costa Rica, Panama, various places. But in the summertime in Wapaka, and it is my favorite. And as a matter of fact, I think we should have a meetup there sometime, some year, somewhere. If we take a boat on the lakes or something, I think it'd be a lot of fun.
That sounds fun.
Yeah. But yeah, so I like to get out on the kayak. In the wintertime, I'm still trying to find a good sport. I get cabin fever in the summertime, so probably get back into cross country skiing this year. Maybe I used to do that when I was a little bit younger. I always liked doing that. So, but
very cool. Yeah.
So
another important question that really kind of shows what kind of people kind of really believe when it comes to this. What do you think 3 words should be to be associated with kind of successful trading?
Sure, I think that I thought about this one ahead of time too, and I want to try and say something nobody else has said before. I don't think anybody has said this, but good trade plan. I think
good trade plan. That's 3 words.
I think that's 3 words that sum up like the the real key to being a successful trader. I like all those other words too, though. Perseverance is one I hold on to. Determination, relentlessness. I mean, you really gotta this is something I truly believe. If you really, really want something, if you really, really want something in life, you can have it. If you're willing to take the time to put your mind on it and work towards that, the only one that's stopping yourself is you. And so I think that, I don't know where I was exactly going to finish with that, but no,
I fully agree. I mean, if you want something, I did a video on this a long time ago about, trader excuses and how they drive me up the wall and, I don't have time as a big excuse. Well, yet there's a such thing as an alarm clock. 5 a.m. does exist. So, I mean,
Absolutely.
It's one of those things where pull out the alarm clock, and if you got to work and got a job, and I realize people are super, super busy, but like you were saying, if you really want it, then, you can get, and I'm not tooting my own horn here, but there's been plenty of 4 a.m., 5 a.m. mornings where I just got to get up and do stuff because I got to get stuff done. And you just, sometimes if you want to get it done right, I mean, you just got to do it. So, I mean, it is what it is. But hey, man, this was very cool. Like I said, I don't think we've had a musician like this, so I appreciate you, hanging out with us today.
Absolutely. Well, thank you guys very much.
And yeah, we'll definitely see in the chat room. Look for a Zepp in there.
Yeah.
And after when this airs, let them know how good of a job you did, because I'm very confident, that people will get information from it. So for those of you listening, if you're listening to this on the website, claytrader.com, if you click that share button or leave us a comment, those things always go a long way. And if you're listening to this on iTunes, go ahead and leave us a rating and leave us feedback there too. Things like that. We do read them, we do consider them, and we're here to, and we're going to keep making these things as long as people are enjoying them and getting value out of them. So let us know, and the easy way to do that is just a few clicks of the mouse to leave us a rating there on iTunes. So thank you again for hanging out with us, and we will see you back for the next episode.
This has been the Stock Trading Reality Podcast. Thanks for taking the time to hang out. To learn more about Clay and the Clay Trader community, including the trading team, premium training, and more, visit claytrader.com.